Today's adventure is going to be a system that was inherited, and unfortunately the county records gave us 3 potential outcomes, and we got to figure out what on earth do they actually have on this property. Now, before we get started, leave a comment below. Tell me, what type of system do you have? Do you have a standard conventional gravity fed system, or do you have one of those cool new high-tech aerobic systems? First things first, we need to talk about what does the county think is on the property. So the county thinks that there is 1 tank, 1 pit, or they think there is 1 tank, 1 trench, and finally they think that they have 1 tank, drain field, to a pit. And that one's the weird one. We're not super sure if that's even going to be there. They don't do that. In today's video, I'm going to take you with me while we figure out what's on this property, and we're going to talk a little bit about the conventional ways that these systems are designed. The first step we have to do, though, is we have to look and see what's there. As soon as we get out of the driveway, we can see that there is a 4-inch PVC pipe right next to it. On the far side, we see that we have a 6-inch PVC pipe. Next to the house, we will see a riser, a 4-inch pipe, and 1 more 4-inch pipe. Each of these pieces could be related to the septic, or they could be just something completely different. So the next step, what we have to do is we have to get everything open. What we're going to do is we're going to take our handy dandy hook and pull this bad boy on off. You see it's pretty far down there, but the liquid level looks to be in pretty good shape. So now we got to get the pipe wrench to get the other lids off. Here's the first one. First one's gone. And here is the 6-inch PVC pipe. Oh boy, that's not good. Water level is very high. Don't know if you can see that very well, but that's not a good sign. Here's number 3. Here is number 4. So now we have all of our pipes open. So we've got all of our lids open. We found the 2 that are close to the house. Those are probably going to be sewer line access points. We found the other one down the hill by the driveway. Also probably a sewer line access, maybe something to do with the basement. Not sure just yet. And then we found that 6-inch PVC pipe. Now, remember, the records indicate a dry well, potentially, or a dry well drain field combination. The fact that we see that 6-inch pipe probably means we don't have a drain field. The next step, what we have to do is we have to take a measurement of that water in that pipe, and then we have to run water through the system. Now, the reason why, that pipe has got water sitting in it. Typically, when you have a dry well, it's going to be a big concrete cylinder with a cinder block wall and a large lid sitting on top. On the exterior of that wall is going to be stone. And the purpose of the dry well is once the septic tank does its job clarifying everything, the water goes into that pit, seeps its way into the surrounding soil. Over time, that water is going to sit in that pit and it's going to fill up more and more with water until eventually it backs up. Now, we see that there's staining on that PVC pipe, and we can see the water level's high. If we run water into the system and it backs up further, we know we got a problem. So let's go ahead and take a better look at that pipe. We'll take a measurement, and then we'll get some water running. So we can see inside of there that the water is well into that pipe. When we take our tape measure, what we're doing is we're measuring from the top of the water to the top of the cleanout. We run water into the system with a known volume of speed, and then we can calculate how much it rose during that time. This helps us figure out that the system's not working. So let's get the hose hooked up, get some water flowing, and see what happens. Now we've got the water running, so it's just a matter of time until we see what actually ends up happening. I've looked inside of the tank with a mirror and a flashlight, and we can see that both baffles are there, but we've got a problem. We've got some roots around that outlet line. Not what we want to see. So while we let the water run, the next step is we need to get our camera into those pipes and figure out where are things going. So that way we can figure out if that 6-inch pipe is actually the dry well, or maybe it does actually connect to a drain field. The camera is the only way that we're going to figure this out. So if you're ever trying to figure out where system components are or what you have on your property, unless the guy has a camera that can help locate stuff, you're not really going to figure it out for sure. If the system's shallow, sure, no problem. This one's 3 feet though, so it's a lot harder to find things with a probe or a metal detector at that depth. While the water's running, we're going to get the camera real fast, run the camera through the pipes, and see what we find. We've run the camera through everything, and the issue that we've got is while we were running water, you could see the water filling up inside of that dry well. and one of the pipes doesn't actually connect to the septic system. So let's look at the dry well and then look at that pipe. So this is the dry well that we started with. Now, we've been running water for about 20 minutes, and we've seen the water level in the pit rise about 6 inches. That's no good. So now that we know that it's risen, we can probe the edge and hit that stone, and we can see that it's nice and wet coming back up. So we can see that the edge of the dry well is wet. Now, as these dry wells fail, basically what will happen is they'll fill up with water. The stone is just there to open the soil up so the water has somewhere to go. Over the course of time, soil will basically become saturated, and the debris, the biomat, will work its way in there and kind of line the soil so that way water can't escape. When a dry well gets full like this, the stone will get wet and it'll start to back up. So even though they've never had a backup in the house, all that wastewater is actually just surfacing in their yard. Kind of gross. But we have an issue with this extra line. Let's take a look. So this line was our extra line that we had to run our camera through to figure out what was going on. So my first thought when I look at this pipe is, what on earth are they using that pipe for? And turns out it's actually for the gray water in the house. Typically, when you have a septic system, what you're gonna do is you're gonna have all your black water and gray water go to the septic tank to where all the heavy stuff will fall out of suspension, and then the liquid will go off and into the absorption system. You always have two parts on a septic system. Sometimes you'll have more, sometimes you'll have less. If you have less, you've probably got a larger problem, right? This is an older house, and with older houses, you will usually get some weird stuff. Gray water used to be classified as not sewage. Now, when this house was built, it was, but the issue is that we are bypassing the septic system entirely. Will this cause a major problem to you as a homeowner if yours is doing that? Probably not. Now, here's why you don't want to do this. If you have the gray water coming out of the house, bypassing the septic tank and going directly into the drain field or dry well in this particular circumstance, you're allowing debris to also get into the system. Whether that's hair, whether that's fabric, whether that's something else that comes from the laundry itself, or maybe even a kitchen sink, all of that debris is going to the dry well or drain field, which can help to accelerate it filling up. That's why you want to make sure it goes to a separation tank, a normal septic tank, so that way all of those solids can fall out of suspension. In this particular situation, that pipe's new, right? That pipe wasn't the normal type of pipe you would usually see for the age of this house. Usually you'd see cast iron or terracotta. So somebody's purposefully done that, and unfortunately that dry well's full of water. But this brings us back to our first question that we had of, we have three potentials on this property: tank to pit, tank to trench, or tank to trench to pit. The property owner was pretty sure that they had a trench in between the tank and the pit. This is very uncommon. They don't usually do that. Usually how it will work if you have a trench system on a pit system is it'll be tank, pit, trench. The reason why is the pit's going to act as a second septic tank in a row. And then it clarifies the liquid even further, and then eventually it works its way into the drain field. Where I'm at, nobody does that. It's very uncommon for here. Usually that's something you're only going to see in Howard County. The next part of why I don't think they have a drain field is when I'm running water, I had the camera in the pipe exiting the tank. I didn't see any perforations in that pipe. I also could see water, as fast as I was putting it in, flowing into the pit from the tank, meaning we have pitch. Now, a drain field is not going to be designed with a pitch. It's going to be flat, and that's so that way the water can actually flow on out of the system. If, for example, they had this system with a drain field in between and it's pitched, that's why the dry well is receiving all of that liquid, ultimately filling up and failing. So where do we go from here? Unfortunately, because that dry well has failed, because it's starting to surface, and because the whole area is saturated, the only option is to replace. So a new drain field system will have to be installed. At that time, the county is going to make them reconnect that gray water to the septic tank. The reason why, again, as we just discussed, is for solids. Now, if it's permitted, if the county says, hey, we're cool with it, do it, no problem. But the chances of the county doing that nowadays are next to none. So what they'll end up having to do is they're going to have to get that perk test done to figure out what type of soil they're working with, to figure out what type of system they can put on the property, and then they're going to have to design it. They will design it off of bedroom count as well as the topography of the property. And unfortunately, we have a lot of trees. So they're probably gonna have to clear some trees out, which will obviously increase the cost. From there, once you get the design figured out, you submit that design to the county and say, hey, county, I want to put this many drain fields at this dimensions for this size home. The county will give you a thumbs up or they'll give you a thumbs down. At which point now you can start digging, you get the county to inspect, and then you're back in business. This is going to be quite a long project. And unfortunately, with an older house, sometimes you get systems that just don't work, right? Typically, the expected lifespan is about 30 or 40 years. So sometimes you'll get a system where, it's just reached the end of its service life and it's time to get it replaced. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen enough to where I'm pretty confident 30 to 40 years is the actual number. Where we get that number is from the state as well as from local universities. They all say 30 years, 40 years, but in practice, I've seen them last longer. I've seen them last shorter. It's all about pumping your tank and taking care of it, which we've covered in the past. So if you're interested in learning about pumping or what happens when you don't pump, go ahead, check out this video on over here. And if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.